biopharmaceuticals, medical device and equipment, research and manufacturing, scientific equipment and research tools. And then following the main sessions, we'll give you the opportunity to go into one of two breakout rooms. The first breakout room is going to be aimed at veterans and transitioning military, but feel free to join either of the rooms. The session at the beginning will be tips for transitioning your military skills to the civilian workplace. And the second breakout room, which is for underrepresented groups and first-generation college students, but again, anyone can join, is tips for new upcoming professionals who want to break into the industry. And then at about 2:40, we'll have a second breakout session, and our speakers will be staying in the same rooms, but our participants can move to different rooms if they'd like to, or stay in the same rooms. So our second breakout session will cover veterans and transitioning military in terms of networking and how to build a network. And then the second breakout room will be covering telling your personal story. So at the end of the breakout room sessions, we'll be sharing information about our 2023 fellowship programs and send you a link to complete a little survey about this symposium. So right now, I'd like to introduce Vicki Brannock, our Director of Workforce Strategy and Innovation. And Vicki will talk to us about Biocom California's Economic Impact Report, which provides key economic, demographic, and industry performance data and analysis for the life science industry in the state and in selected sub-state regions. So Vicki, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Karen. Hopefully you can all see my screen. Thank you so much. We're delighted to have you all here in this. And in this session, we're really going to be talking about the life science economic impact on the state, the outlook for the sector. We're going to be reviewing the types of jobs available and the educational requirements. And if you're interested, our new economic impact report will be released in a few weeks and will be posted on the Biocom California website. So the life science industry supports more than 1.3 million jobs in California. You can see from this information that close to 500,000 jobs are direct employment in the life science companies, but there are over 1 million additional jobs generated in support of this sector. The life science sector is a really important part of California's economic engine, with over $1 billion worth of labor income. The industry is a key driver of economic growth and innovation, employing people in 6 subsectors: biotechnology, biopharmaceuticals, medical devices and equipment, research and manufacturing, scientific and research tools, food and agriculture, biotech, and later you'll be hearing from a panel of industry experts who will be exploring these in more detail. So no need to worry about this right now. They'll really get into this information for you in a few minutes. So despite the disruptions of the past few years, the life science industry has experienced growth in jobs. While California as a whole has experienced job reductions, life science overall continue to grow and thrive. So with biotechnology jobs experiencing the strongest growth in this particular sector, but the other sectors are still continuing to show strong resilience to the current economic problems. So while this is not a comprehensive list, we wanted to highlight some of the global companies that call California home. There are vast and exciting careers available in the life science industry and well-paying, interesting, mission-driven jobs that provide lifelong learning opportunities. While some of these jobs are scientists and engineers, many of them aren't. The industry needs employees in a variety of areas such as manufacturing, project management, supply chain, logistics, information technology, regulatory and quality assurance, human resources, facilities management, operations, marketing, and much, much more. So the same types of jobs basically that exist in life science, that exist in any other company, exist in the life science industry. So the data we're using today comes from our 2021 Life Science Workforce Trends Report. This report was a collaborative project with other life science association and companies to get the most comprehensive snapshot of our industry. We looked at real-time data to produce this report. It was derived from quantitative data from job postings for California life science technical jobs, survey responses from human resource representatives and hiring managers, and interviews with California life science executives. One of the leading concerns cited by life science executive and companies is finding and developing the right talent to meet their organization's evolving needs, and that's why we're here. The number one question from legislators and academic institutions is, where are the jobs now and where are the jobs going to be in the future? So here's some key takeaways that emerged from our data. The life science industry continues to grow and thrive despite the recent economic concerns, and companies are continuing to evaluate the workplace habits, and those include the remote and hybrid models, and what they're doing is being able to compensate and to just take a new look at how people are working and the best and most effective way that they can bring workers into the industry. Diversity, equity, and inclusion hiring practices are also at the forefront of these trends, and post-hiring support has really emerged across the industry, and that means employee resource groups are beginning to flourish within certain companies and in the industry as a whole. Consortiums are being formed to be able to support people at the post-hiring phase, and that's especially true for those who have been traditionally underrepresented in our industry. So that's a really good trend, but we know that we can and we must do more. Another trend that has emerged is the professional skills, sometimes referred to as soft skills. And those are really being viewed from our industry leaders as predictors of career success. And so some of the ones that are most reflective of that are adaptability, resilience, and communications. And the thing that we need to continue to work on is that is still not really reflected in job postings, but those are things that companies and executives have listed as some of the things that they need, that they can actually determine the success of an individual within their company. Industry and academic collaborations have become key in addressing the shifting demands for talent as well. So who's hiring in California? These are the employers with the most job postings, just in general. These are the 15 companies, and this is in descending order. So you can see that Thermo Fisher, Amgen, Genentech, Quest, just to name a few. This is not comprehensive by any means. Johnson & Johnson, Illumina are all having some pretty robust hiring and continue to do that even in this economic, some of this economic uncertainty. So job postings by the major life science sectors. Number one, as you can see, drugs and pharmaceuticals. Number two is the medical device and equipment. 3 is research, testing, and medical labs. 4 is biorelated distribution. And then 5 is agriculture, including feedstock and industrial bio. So here's some leading job titles and groupings for hiring over the last 4 years. And you can see that while scientists are still the largest group in general research for these companies, also quality assurance and control are hiring very robustly. Data scientists are also continuing to grow, and we really see that as an emerging trend as well, as there be more data scientists in the future. Medical scientists also, and then some of the jobs here in technical jobs, laboratory technicians and medical science liaisons, and then general production also are very important. And we see those as areas that will continue to grow, especially as more biomanufacturing companies come into California. So education and experience requirements in the industry, and this is based on job postings. So a bachelor's degree is the most common listed educational requirement, followed by master's and PhD. And you can see that that is directly proportional to the types of jobs that are open and available. But you can also see here that there are positions available that only require high school or GED. And we did not in this report account for certificate programs and certifications, which are emerging, and we really expect to see them becoming more prominent in the years ahead. On the experience requirements, 34% of the job postings did not list the number of years of experience required, but of those that did, 21% listed 4 to 6 years, followed by 2 to 3 years. So a small amount of job experience can really get you in the door in many of these companies. So we really hope you enjoyed this snapshot of the industry and that it was helpful for you as you consider your next step in your career. And we hope that you'll explore the many options available to you in this growing sector. So Karen, I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Vicki. That's a fascinating look into our industry in terms of the workforce trends. Right now, we are going to move right on into our main keynote speaker, and I'd like to introduce Eddie Utuk, who is Senior Staff Project Manager, Global Business Operations in the Life Sciences and Laboratory Products Group at Thermo Fisher Scientific. Welcome, Eddie.
Hey, thank you very much, Karen. If you can, let me go ahead and share my screen. Can you see the screen that I'm sharing?
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And as I just get organized here, what an incredible opportunity. So first thing and foremost, just based on how I was raised, I want to say thank you. Thank you in particular to Karen, Paulina, Brandon, and Vicki for championing the advocacy for veterans community. You make such a complete difference. I like to think about the significance of organizations like Biocom and what you do for the military, like the relationship between the sun and the moon, in that we can only see the moon based on the reflection of the light that comes from the sun. I think this is a powerful metaphor for what you do in advocating between industry and the service members, and also shining a spotlight on that military talent, as you mentioned, while subsequently and deliberately generating a distinct pathway for the discovery of that talent. This is truly what I would describe as a transformational value proposition and not just a transactional one. So thank you very much. The second thank you really goes out to the audience. Thanks for partnering with Biocom. From my experience, I was with Hire Heroes Foundation, but thank you in particular for making the time to attend this especially very, very special event. And for the transitioning service members, what I would say, thank you for your quintessential service to this great nation. And then third, let me just quickly orient on the slide and really kind of use that as a background to maybe just introduce myself into a little bit more depth. So I recently retired after serving our great nation for 25 years as a United States Marine. And I'm sure you're wondering, what is a jarhead doing in the midst of these incredibly talented panel that you're going to be hearing from today? Anyway, in my most recent assignment, I was one of 4 certified planning practitioners within an organization comprising of about 54,000 people. I was directly responsible for advising corporate executive leadership on high-risk crises and contingency plans aligned with U.S. national policy and security interests across the globe. I also had the distinct privilege of leading global cross-functional teams, creating strategic business models and designs for talent management, and then also building flexible options to support U.S. global force management requirements across the globe. I currently work at Thermo Fisher as a senior staff project manager. I work within the global business operations team. Thermo Fisher's scientific mission is very compelling, and it's really designed to make the world healthier, cleaner, and safer. I always tell my family that's definitely something I can get up and not wear my camis anymore, but just throw on, maybe a suit and tie and then get behind trying to support. This mission statement is profound and one that really resonated with me as a service member. I hold an undergraduate degree in applied chemistry and a master's degree in national security and strategic studies. But as you look in the slide, the three phrases that really resonates with me is what's shown there. So the first one is put God first and focus on family always. And I think you're going to see as I deep dive into my personal experience, you're going to see some of that. The next one is this whole concept about the bucket brigade. It is the finest example of servant leadership and expressed by the life work of Benjamin Franklin with the Union Fire Department. It was the first of its kind. It was an all-volunteer fire department. Just think about a group of ordinary people, all volunteer, doing extraordinary things, forming human-to-human change to pass water in a bucket to put out fire. I think we could do more about that in the 21st century as we look forward about that connection. This is really, truly about people helping people. And as my good friend, Britt Davis, who I think probably joined us, it's about hands washing hands. Another person I wanted to recognize is a mentor of mine, Dan Aparicio. If you're out there in the audience, thank you for the powerful mentorship that you provided me as I've joined the Thermo Fisher scientific team. He was the one that recommended a powerful book entitled Essentialism. Please, if you can add that to your book collection, it is a great read. It is a book about focusing your life on the critical few and not getting distracted by the trivial many. It's a powerful read. Anyway, why don't I deep dive into my life story, just share a little bit, really wave top. My life story is a great illustration of the wonderful opportunities if you have the right context, mindset, and view life as an adventure. I want to note here as a disclaimer that I am not a practitioner of life sciences. I really respect the guys with a lab coat, especially in Thermo Fisher. But I want to focus my keynote more on the subject of life than sciences. And I think that this is going to be more of a philosophical approach and not just a checklist to say, hey, this is how you move about trying to integrate with any company of your choice during this critical phase of your journey. So up front, the layout is going to be based on 3 transformations. They are all aligned with some phone calls, so 3 phone calls. The next, I'm going to try to connect the dots. And what did that really mean to Eddie? And then the third one, some rules of the game, just based on my experience and wanting to share with somebody else out there that can relate. So the first phone call, which was transformational, happened when I was knee deep in my first combat deployment in Iraq. This is as early as 2002 and 2004, during the bloodiest phase of counterinsurgency operations in places like Iraq and Afghanistan. This deployment was of deep significance based on what had happened on our own soil, one of the deadliest attacks on US soil since Pearl Harbor. This was a strategic blow and a surprise. But prior to this first deployment around July of 2001, I remember this like yesterday. We were flying over the Pentagon with one of my best friends sitting next to me after graduating from Bulldog, that's Officers Candidate School. As we peered down at the Pentagon, as the aircraft began to gain elevation, I remember telling Jeremy is a scout sniper, we trained together for OCS. I said, there is so much information about us service members in that single building. This is a red eye, we're flying back to San Diego from Reagan International. But unbeknownst to me, making that statement, I had just identified a critical vulnerability because exactly 8 weeks later, this was one of the targets deliberately selected by the enemy. So who can forget that frigid morning with our national flag at half mast? So flash forward to my first combat. I was now a rifle platoon commander with 3rd LAD Battalion, doing God's work in God's country. And I got the first phone call. And guess what? During the next few seconds, I'll get to learn that I lost my first child, okay? But through God's amazing grace, my commanding officer put me on the next thing smoking out of Iraq. Weeks later, I was finding myself, with my wife by her bedside in the emergency room. And I truly don't know until this day how I was able to make it back on that plane, back to Iraq to complete that combat deployment with my Marines. So the first lesson here is life is not fair, and you will learn more about who you truly are when confronted with an adversity of such. The second phone call. During the Growth of Force initiative in 2006 and 2008, I had made it to the drill field. And during that time, I had the distinctive privilege to be selected for multiple company command tours at MCRD San Diego. This was an important period in our nation's history where we were actively growing force levels to keep up with the operational demand signal that was coming forward from places like Afghanistan, Iraq. The commandant at the time had this to say about the mission of the Marine Corps. He said the Marine Corps has two missions. One is to fight and win our nation's battles, and the other one is to make Marines. So I was actually in the other phase after combat deployment, now making Marines. And I was in the middle of MCRD San Diego executing my duties, and at the pinnacle of my journey when I got the next phone call out of the blue. And then this time around, it was a phone call notifying me that my father had passed away. Till this very day again, I don't know how I made it through that day. It must have been the people around me at the time. But this event brought me closer to God, and why you see the significance of what I put on the slide. It underscored the preeminence of family, and it's a great reminder of the value of the limited time we have and that life is short. Now, the third phone call happened right after I was assigned to one of the highest tactical warfighting organizations in the Marine Corps as a war planner. This was a period where I led a warfighting command element as a lead planner to exercise a real-world contingency plan. If you remember, in response to the death of Soleimani in Iran, Iran launched theater ballistic missiles targeting key operating locations with US and coalition forces in Iraq. I actually watched this event unfold in real time. We knew it was coming. There was no surprise because we had planned for this type of event. As a response, the US was putting together active plans, response plans to deploy combat capabilities into theater, and I was so glad to be part of that. Anyway, in this day, never forget it, it was a Friday, working to try to get ready for a general officer brief in a compartmentalized space. I received a phone call on the on-class line. So I went over, I picked up the phone, and a few seconds later, my only surviving parent, I was told, my mom, had passed away. I'll never forget that day again. This event is what made me into the type of husband, father, brother, and man that I am today. So what I would just impart to the audience, to especially the people who wear the uniform, live every day like it's your last. If you want to change the world, go home, love your family. And then why don't I dive into the next chapter, which is connecting the dots. So these three events, I call them transformational. They have given me the clearest appreciation for the infinite value of life, which is how you spend your limited time. As I reflect on my time during transitioning and while enrolled in the corporate fellowship program, I had to deeply reflect on the key questions you see displayed on the slide. It was a time for me to deeply self-introspect and on the following questions. So things like, what is my life strategy? What is my plan? If you read the book Strategy by Lawrence Friedman, he uses the Mike Tyson quote that shows the importance of having a simple and flexible plan. I think we can all apply that in our life journey. I love that quote. It says, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And that is a real life lesson. Life is short. Follow your passion. Have a simple and deliberate plan. Don't try to boil the ocean. Make sure that you are in perfect alignment with your purpose. This is resonance. Obviously, we got a quote that says that the two most important days of your life is the day you were born and the day that you discover the purpose for why you were born. So what is your purpose? How do you want to be remembered in the short time that you have here? These are all questions that I think we grappled about and we think about. So as I try to close out this slide here, I just want to talk about the importance of knowledge of self, identity, right? That's supreme. People want to help you more than you can ever imagine. You have to have the ability to connect with them in the first 2 minutes out there. Life is busy, just optimize that time. I learned that obviously from Dan Aparicio, who's my mentor, that it took him no less than 2 minutes after I walked my very first time into Thermo Fisher to know if he wanted to have a conversation with me about long-term opportunity. So think about that compelling narrative to sum up who you are and what type of problem you can help people solve. And then work and polish that elevator speech, because you want to practice over and over till it becomes like breathing. And that compelling elevator speech is what got me to be able to build credibility within 2 minutes. And then the next thing is everything begins with a clear vision. Just imagine a future that you want to, kind of prototype yourself against. Write down your life mission and goals. Have no more than 3. Obviously, you can't boil the ocean. When you get into, obviously, starting to maybe your journey, just focus on doing your job. I want to say competence is infectious. Ineptitude brings about loss of credibility, resentment, and regret. So for the most part, you're going to find yourself, especially for those service members, it's going to sound like when you get into industry, like you're speaking gibberish, because they just don't understand. Think about 7.4 billion people in the world. Only a very small fraction of people get to serve. So you have to have a way to be able to, communicate, what you can bring to the table, support the team. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is life is all about building strategic relationships with people in a way that matters. Build relationships that matter. Life is about the people who know you and not about the people you know. Because really, your force of character is going to get you into a team, maybe get you a job, but your habits, right, is what sets you apart. Your character combined with your habits are like the small hinges that is going to open doors for you. That force of character is what keeps you in the room, stabilizes you in industry, and learning constantly. I'm a lifelong learner, and I like to share that with everyone. The next thing is kind of step to my last slide here. Well, my second to the last slide. And in no particular order, what I had done is I was thinking to myself, if I had the virtue of going back again to the fellowship program or being an intern or integrating with Biocom, what are some things that I can share that might have meaning? So Simon Sinek's book is so powerful. It says, start with why. It crystallizes the essence of purpose and how that ties into being able to play the infinite game and not the finite game. Next is being yourself. It pays to be authentic. We find that we support big organizations, but we forget about the whole concept of self-importance. So what if we flip that paradigm on its head and begin with self-leadership, running yourself like you would a Fortune 500 company? And to this point, how are you leading and directing that person that stares back at you every day in the mirror? For the most part, you are constantly, perhaps, competing against somebody else's path. What is your own path? What is your vision about you, Inc.? So for mine, it's Eddie Inc. I have principles, obviously, that underline how I run my life. The next is keeping it simple and stupid, all right? Don't try to, complicate things. And the next one is atomic habits. Just focus on identity, then outcomes and processes. The incremental changes that you make on a day-to-day basis is really what leads you to transformational changes every day in the long run. Time is limited, as I mentioned, and then really kind of picture in your mind, the 100-mile rule. What is it in life that you would walk 100 miles in a path that is covered in broken glasses to try to accomplish? And then who are your life board directors? If you had the chance to pick people that are on your board of directors sitting across from you, who would those people be? Who are the people that are holding up your casket when you're no longer here? So I really believe that. And then I want to close with this last slide. At this point, whether you're gearing up to dive into corporate industry or have newly graduated or preparing to sunset your brilliant service to this great land, I want you to take a second to just breathe and relax. Know that the very best is yet to come as you embark on the next chapter. You will be truly amazed at how many people are willing to support you. If Justice is out there, Abel, G. Lewis, Britt Davis, and Daniel, you have made such a profound impact in my transformation. And now, really, for the timeless quote from a classic warrior, it says, the happiness of your life really hinges on your way of thinking, which is your mindset. Your mindset is that small hinge that opens big doors. Or you can look at it as your mindset as that north-seeking arrowhead that can lead you to great transformations in your life. Focus on the critical few and worry less about the trivial many, because those are predominantly transactional, all right? So it's time for you to, free fall into that dive, jump head first. The only person holding you back is, quite frankly, you. Have zero fear, zero self-limits, and you will live your life to its fullest and maximum potential. Thank you so much for the Biocom team for having me. It's an incredible honor. And with that, I'll stop talking. Over to you.
Eddie, thank you so much. What a fantastic and very inspirational keynote. A couple of the takeaways that I had is that people really want to help you. They really want to be there for you. Self-leadership is important, and your mindset is super important, and that we all have challenges and setbacks, and resilience is really key. So those are just some of the things that I got out of what you were talking about. Appreciate it so much. Thank you very much for your time today.
Incredible honor. Thank you.
So we're going to move on now to our deep dive into the life science sectors. And I would like to introduce you to our moderator today, Michelle Nimitz. Michelle is the Executive Director for our Bay Area region for Biocom Association, and is heavily involved in workforce development work and with boards and the colleges and universities up in her area. And she's going to take us through with our panel of experts, a deep dive into the life science sectors that we mentioned earlier. So Michelle, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Vicki. It's an honor to be here, and I'm extremely humbled actually to be following Mr. Utuk, because he was a phenomenal speaker, and I took away so many things from what he said. And Vicki, I took away the same thing you did. In particular, which is that people really want to help you. They want to help you get into this industry, and they want to help you succeed once you're in it. So, to those of you watching today, if you take nothing else away, know that that's true, and that everybody here on this webinar today are among those folks that want to help you. We're all working in the industry. And so, I want to encourage all of you to keep that in mind and reach out to us if we can help you. It's an amazing industry. It's filled with lots of people like Mr. Utuk. He's a shining example of the type of person that works in this industry. You can just hear the optimism in his voice, service-minded, mission-driven. This industry is made up of lots of people like that. And I'm lucky enough to sit here today with a few of those people on this panel. So I can't see the panel. Are they all on the screen, Vicki?
Yes, I think the pictures were up, but I don't know if we've spotlighted them. So Paulina, do you want to spotlight our panelists for us?
Great. I saw the picture. I wasn't sure if I had the right view or not. So yeah, once they're all on, if it's time, I could just go ahead and start doing some introductions.
That'd be great. Thank you, Michelle.
So are they all pinned? Is it ready? Because I can't see it. I don't know.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I didn't mean to delay. Okay, so we're going to take a deep dive into the life science subsectors. We're going to talk about what the subsectors are, what each of the subsector kind of does, how each one differs from the other. And when we say subsectors, we mean biotechnology, biopharmaceuticals, medical devices, laboratory equipment, manufacturing, biomanufacturing. So there's different kinds of subsectors, and we're going to dive into each of those. We're going to find out how they're different, how they're the same, what kinds of jobs are in each of these subsectors, and what kinds of skills are needed to access careers in these subsectors. So I want to encourage you, if you have any questions, to put them in the chat. We'll try to answer some of them at the end if we have time, and if not, we'll try to get back to you to answer your questions. But at this point, I want to introduce our panel. I can't see them, so I assume they're out there. And we'll just start with Alexa from Lineage Cell Therapeutics.
Hi, I'm here. Thank you, the organizers, for having us here. Thank you for allowing us to present our thoughts, personal opinions, and stories. Just a little introduction on me. My name is Alexa Poole. I'm a VP of Product Development and Lineage Cell Therapeutics, Inc. Who is Lineage? Lineage is a public clinical stage biotechnology company that is developing novel cell therapies for unmet medical needs. Some of those unmet needs are diseases of vision loss, hearing loss, spinal cord injury, and also non-small cell lung cancer. My role within the company is to develop new cellular products, to design the studies that are necessary to determine the safety and efficacy of these products, and to communicate this information to the FDA with the goal of seeing these therapies become available to patients that need them. My personal story is I'm a first-generation immigrant. From a very early age, I was always very interested in biology and anything that has to do with life science in general. As a child, I would come home having worms and bugs in my pocket, and I just wanted to have a little bit more time to look at them and nurture them and observe them. That's when I knew that I will definitely end up being in biology or life science. But that nurturing aspect of me was even more enhanced watching my sister finish medical school. However, I didn't want to be a medical doctor, so I wanted to go and get my doctorate degree in cancer and molecular genetics, because really my kind of goal was to figure it out, how do we prevent diseases and not just treat them? So I packed my 2 suitcases and came to United States, and 25 years later in this wonderful country, I'm happy that I have a beautiful family and the career that inspires me every day.
That's great. Thank you, Alexa. Steve, we have Steve from Neurocrine here today. Steve, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
Absolutely. So my name is Steve Beck. I am the Senior HR Manager at Neurocrine Biosciences. I've been here for about 4.5 years. Neurocrine focuses primarily on neurology and endocrinology, and we're a biopharmaceutical company. And I'll go into that a little bit more detail in the next question, but we go from research and development, working in the laboratory, coming up with new compounds, to commercialization. So really the entire process is where we focus. And right now we've got 4 approved products in the market, so doing pretty well. My journey into the life sciences realm really started about 20 years ago. I was working in industry and the defense industry, and they were closing bases around the country and so forth. And so I needed to go find a little bit more stable industry. And I lucked into the small boutique firm out of Florida. And they focused on biostatistics, data management, and SaaS programming. I didn't know any of those at the time. But in HR, you don't have to know it, but you have to understand it enough to be dangerous. So, and then I got bought by a CRO, and we ended up doing clinical trials for pharmaceutical companies. 14 years later, one of my clients recruited me to Intercept Pharmaceuticals, and then I got recruited to Neurocrine, and so I've been here ever since. So, thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Steve. Next, we have Heather. Heather is from Thermo Fisher Scientific. Heather, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Good afternoon. My name is Heather. Heather Vano. I am the Senior Program Manager for Supplier Diversity for Thermo Fisher Scientific. I went to college for 2 years and then promptly ran out of money. So I joined the military for the GI Bill. And I ended up coming back, finishing my degree. And then after I had a few different jobs, a friend of mine told me that her company was looking for someone to work with veteran-owned small businesses. And she thought I might be a good fit since I was in the military and I had worked for a clinical trials organization. So I ended up, my first job was to speak with small veteran-owned businesses about working in life sciences. So that's how it started.
That's great. Thank you. Next on our panel, we have Matt. Matt's from Quidel.
Hi, my name is Matt Mordrich. I'm the Associate Director of Systems Engineering at Quidel, and we make medical diagnostics. My group specifically designs machines that run these tests. And my background is I was enlisted in the Navy when I was fresh out of high school, and I spent a few years there. I had experience as an electronics technician on a submarine. And after I finished my service, I started going to school and ended up getting a job repairing equipment in a biotech company, and that a few jobs, as I pursued a little more education, and I ended up in my current role.
That's great. Thanks, Matt. And last but definitely not least, we have Paula, and Paula comes from Sanford Burnham Institute.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm Paula. My pronouns are she, her, and my background is I'm actually an academic administrator where I oversee graduate recruitment and educational outreach. And my story is I've been involved in education for many years. I'm starting with my undergraduate at UMass Amherst, where I thought I was actually going to be a science teacher. I instead went to graduate school at Emory and then did my postdoc at UC Davis, after which I moved back to the East Coast to be a college professor at a liberal arts college. And after being tenured and there for many years, I wanted to come back to the West Coast for several reasons. One, because there's an opportunity for me to take a leadership role and to also get involved with education and outreach of students of many years. So in my role here, I work with graduate students, postdoctoral fellows, and I'm also the program director of a CIRM-funded initiative for diverse students. I'm studying stem cell research at the Institute. So thank you so much for having me.
That's great. Thank you, Paula. All interesting and diverse backgrounds. I want to dive into all of it. So let's talk a little bit more deeply about the subsectors that each of you represents, because you all come from companies that are more or less, they're all under life sciences, but life sciences is a broad umbrella, and there are many subsectors under life sciences. And it's interesting to think about how they're distinct, but also how they all kind of play a part in the way that ultimately the industry serves patients at the end of the day, right? That is the goal. It's to create therapeutics and things that help patients in the end to treat diseases and other states. So maybe if each of you could dive into a little bit about what your specific subsector does, and kind of the role it plays in the larger ecosystem, maybe how it relates to the other subsectors, if you can talk about that. And then, why is it important in terms of the ultimate patient that we're all trying to serve? So let me just go around the room. How about if I start with Matt?
Yeah, our subsector is medical diagnostics, and basically that means we make tests. The easy reference is COVID tests are our big product, but sort of Quidel Ortho started that we made pregnancy tests and flu tests. Now we're this very big company here in San Diego, and we make tests for just about everything. And how that fits in is, right, we're sort of this critical part of patient diagnosis, right? We a flu test might not seem like a lot, but we serve an important function where people get the right care and they get it quickly. And now we can actually, a lot of our tests happen, you can order our tests and get them sent to your home. And it prevents people from going out and spreading diseases or getting the right surgery or treatment.
Awesome, thank you. So medical diagnostics. Paula, let's move on to you. You're in the scientific academic research.
Sure, yeah. So Sanford Burnham Prebys is a nonprofit research institution. We are similar to academic institutions, but we really have three principles that we're focused on that all are important towards human health. So we're focused on fundamental research. We've been around for 45 years. The areas of research that our faculty study are cancer, neuroscience, immunology, rare children's diseases. We are also a drug discovery center. So we operate one of the most advanced drug discovery centers in the world. We leverage biomedical discoveries to develop prototype drugs. So we also have a deep culture of collaboration, and this has attracted a large network of very passionate partners. So one of the other reasons I wanted to be here today in this group is I know how important those partnerships are. And then also education. That's where really my background is. And we're committed to education and training the next generation of scientific leaders. And that ranges from programs where we support high school students, college students, our graduate students, and our postdoctoral trainees.
That's great. Thank you, Paula. I think the next logical person to go to would be Alexa, because you're just on the other side of what Paula's doing.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah. So unlike Paula's institution, we're a public for-profit organization that is focusing on using cells as a therapeutic agent. So we make cells from stem cells, and we also make cells from adult cells to basically create treatments and therapies for people. So when somebody thinks about cells, what kind of diseases can you treat? So for example, spinal cord injury per se, it's not a disease, but it's a condition when you have loss of certain neurons, and the only way that it can help people in spinal cord injury is replacing the cells that were damaged and lost. In some other cases, for example, there are cancer types that could be treated with immunotherapy. So that's also a cellular product that is working slightly differently, and that is to, for example, stimulate immunity to fight off certain cancers or, anything that is quote unquote faulty in your body. So the reason that we're focusing on this is really just deep expertise that people in the company have, but also to provide a little bit of diversity when it comes to treatments. There's quite a lot of pharma companies, and they do great things for people's health, but this is just another basically approach, relatively novel, but I think it holds a great promise in regenerative medicine.
Yeah, so emerging biotechnology is interesting. Steve, let's go to you next.
Absolutely. So Neurocrine is a pharmaceutical company. So pharmaceuticals really making medicines, and pharmaceuticals primarily are made from compounds that are found in that are non-organic. And so we manufacture those through chemistry and so forth. So to try to come up with the right mechanism, most of the time these are just pills and you can swallow them. And then we are actually working on something similar to what Alexa is working on in the biologics. And so how can we take cells and proteins and modify those to where they heal as well? So just different mechanisms of how we go about finding new products. The third area we're working on is gene therapies. So how do we modify the gene therapies in our research? So we're adding those to our pipeline. I mean, pretty cool, but that's primarily pharmaceutical, biopharmaceuticals is how do we get new compounds out the market. So.
Great, thank you, Steve. Heather, going over to you, and Thermo Fisher is such an interesting company also because you kind of overarch all of the other subsectors we've already talked about with the vast and varied kind of work that Thermo Fisher Scientific does. So can you talk about the sector that you're in? It's kind of defined as equipment and scientific tools, but Thermo Fisher does a lot more than that.
Yes, we are a provider of medical equipment, analytical instruments, reagents, and consumables, software and services, trying to tackle that analytical challenge in research or diagnostic or clinical laboratories. We try and work with our suppliers and our customers to serve science, really.
So a lot of what you do enables everyone else on this panel to do what they do.
Yeah, yes, and I'm definitely a fan of certain manufacturers like Quidel. I just love it. So there's a lot of products I love here. So.
Yeah, so I think it's illustrative though of the varied types of research, manufacturing, and service providers that are in this industry, and they're all really important in order to get kind of the final product to the patient at the end of the day, which is what we're all here for. Let's pivot a little bit to talk about what kind of skills are needed to work in this industry. So Heather, if I could stay with you for just a minute. Can you talk a little bit about how your company recruits and hires, what kinds of skills they're looking for? Are they looking for specific types of degrees, or are they looking for skill sets? And then Vicki, I think it was Vicki earlier in the conversation mentioned new certificate programs that they're working on with some of the community colleges and the state universities, in order to provide specialized skills to people who maybe want to transition into the industry. Is that something Thermo Fisher is aware of and utilizing or thinking about? Maybe some of the practices there.
We have different people in TA and talent acquisition. Some of them focus on certain academic segments, but we also have dedicated recruiters that have target focuses, whether it's HBCU graduates or veterans transitioning. We actually have folks that specifically call on veterans, and that's the basis for the dialogue. Is okay. Walk me through your experiences. The other thing is we've just started, excuse me, having conversations with VSOs, veteran service organizations. And that is because their sole mission is to find employment for veterans or spouses of veterans. So we're trying to learn from them what they're doing as far as resume gathering, how they're screening folks to get folks to their next opportunity in life once they separate.
That's great. Alexa, do you want to build on that? What types of skills and degrees is your company looking for? And I guess a broader question is, are there roles within your company that don't require a scientific degree?
Oh,
I think
absolutely.
the perception is that in order to work in this industry, you need to be a scientist. And you are a scientist and you lead a lot of other scientists, but do you have to be a scientist to work at Lineage Cell?
Absolutely not. We have quite a lot of people that are non-scientists, but what I think it's a characteristic for everyone that likes to be in a life science is having that curiosity and really just working for a certain mission, right? Every single day we wake up and we speak with a lot of, patients and advocates and organizations that are trying to help other people and find new treatment. So I think it's more just to really be, great communicator, to be, again, problem solver, to be a creative person, to just really want to be here. So yeah, it's absolutely not critical. But yeah, a lot of organizations, just so everybody knows, they're not really big of an organization. Lineage is not either. So being a good team player and, playing well with others and supporting each other, that's basically what's more important than anything else. People invest in people. People don't invest in skill sets or degrees or pieces of paper. Piece of paper is absolutely meaningless if you're not a good contributor.
Thank you. And Paula, I think you're actively engaged in recruiting as well. Do you want to talk about some of the roles you recruit for? What are the skill sets you're looking for, degrees you're looking for? And what are the, I guess, you're hiring for, like specifically?
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt about that. Yeah, so I'm specifically with graduate recruitment at our program, but I do work very closely with HR, and so I'm pretty familiar with what the other roles aside from just the scientists that are hiring. Like others have mentioned, everyone here, I'd say that we are also passionate, we're dedicated, we're team players. And as an independent biomedical research institute, we function like an academic institution. So recruitment is really based on the role that's being recruited for and the laboratory or department in which someone will be hired if it's for a scientific position. And we do have opportunities for non-scientists. I don't hire for these roles, but there are opportunities in our administrative office. And the other opportunities that we have for non-graduate students, so anyone coming in who's not administrative but wants to be in science, I'm not sure they're ready to go into for further schooling. These are paid technician jobs. And so these are recruited and hired based on the specific lab.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Steve, I want to turn to you for a minute. You work in human resources, so I think we can get some interesting information from you as well on this. And you work for a company that does R&D, you research, you develop, you take products through the clinic, they get approved. I think you said you had 4 approved products earlier. You commercialize them, which means you sell them. Can you maybe take us, kind of loosely for the audience in case they're not aware of it, like what does all that mean? And what are the different kinds of roles that are available throughout those various processes? You've got R&D, you've got quality, you've got manufacturing, commercial.
Yeah, we've got a wide variety of opportunities at Neurocrine or any pharmaceutical company that has a commercial product. So at the beginning, there's research and development, and that's a lot of what Alexa was alluding to, the scientist roles. Even in the laboratory, we still have folks that don't need degrees. You've got lab techs and so forth that can come in and help. If there's a vivarium, there's animal technicians and so forth as well. And those are kind of entry-level roles that you can get in and start working within the lab. But from there, we go into clinical trials, and clinical trials is a really great space. We hire a lot of entry-level folks into clinical trials as a clinical trial associate. You get trained up as to how to run clinical trials, coordinating with the sites and making sure the patients are getting the treatments that are needed, and collecting that data. Within product development, it's really designing the study itself, and that typically requires advanced degrees. After it's in the clinic, once it's approved, we've got supply chain, and that's getting supplies out to different sites and manufacturing the product and so on. And so those are areas where absolutely you don't have to have a special degree to get into it. In the commercial side, we've got a lot of sales individuals, and really in that space, it's attitude. It's willingness to jump in and get things done, and just having a really good interactions with other folks and communication style. With any company, though, you've also got the general administrative functions, and that's the accounting, that's the human resources, that's your legal team, and they have paralegals. You've got all these normal jobs that are every single company, and if you have those skills, you can go to any industry. I prefer life sciences because we're on the cutting edge of how we're going to help patients. So I think that's why I'm here. But again, we've got so many different roles that don't require degrees. The one thing we really do look for is attitude. People who are positive and interested, and they're going to come in and they're going to be problem solvers. Yeah, I'm passionate. I don't have a background, but I want to learn and I want to do something that will benefit people.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, that speaks to that service mentality that we started with in the beginning. That's awesome. Matt, in the medical diagnostic space, what types of roles exist there? And, are you looking for scientists, non-scientists, all of the above? What types of skills and roles?
Sure. We obviously have a core of scientists and engineers who, typically there is a particular background we look for, but there is the same support roles that everybody mentioned. We're a big manufacturer, so there's a lot of manufacturing jobs, operations, and all the administrative stuff. I've been hiring a lot lately. I manage a team, and it's hard to find people. And I am always just sort of pushing the HR to give me broader, don't limit. And then what I look for is attitude and aptitude. I'm very willing to bring in somebody else who doesn't have the right background, the right thing, or someone who got their foot in the door working in an entry-level role, but is a good person, is kind, and is a good worker. That's 100% what I will look for, as opposed to somebody with this great resume who might not be a good fit. So just work hard and get your foot in the door, and that's that's the best advice I think I can give to folks starting.
That's great. I want to dive specifically now into, veterans that are in our audience here, and how can they transfer their skills to this industry? They may not be aware that a lot of what they've acquired throughout their military service is transferable to this industry. So I wonder if we could talk about that for a minute. Heather, can we start with you? Can you talk about the types of opportunities that veterans might have at your company, and what types of skills you're looking for, and specifically, skills that military veterans may have?
So for us, we naturally just have come to the conclusion that folks in the military are leaders. And so, there's the focus on the mission, the focus on the team succeeding, pass, fail, the mission being achieved. And so for us, we can really bring them into, I know this is a terrible answer, we can bring them almost into any category of role. And, one of the things that I think I'd mentioned to you previously, Michelle, is that people look at Thermo Fisher Scientific and may not realize that 1 in 5 folks has a finance or accounting degree. And we have people with English majors to help us write proposals and RFPs. Supply chain is heavy, IT is heavy, and sales. If you are someone interested in sales, we have a wonderful program to train folks that may have no experience at all, where I can't teach someone to be outgoing, but I can teach them about products and commodities and services. So just to kind of replicate what other folks are saying on the panel is, if you have the aptitude, the willingness, and you're interested in it, we can definitely train you up. So if you're coachable, we're interested. You know, you don't have to have a very specific background from a degree from a specific accredited academic institution. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for the attitude and the drive.
That's great. Well, if I could take a moderator point of privilege here. I've been in this industry for almost 30 years and I don't have a scientific background, and I started in sales. And I didn't start at Thermo Fisher Scientific, but I started at a similar company, and just my own personal experience, that kind of sales is so interesting because you're selling to folks like Alexa and Steve and others on this panel who are doing amazing work and who are in their own right amazing people. They're smart, they're working on really important products. And so just, from my own personal experience, I can say that entering the industry through that route is great and doable, even for me, who was an international studies major in college many, many, many years ago. So Matt, what about you? I think you're a military veteran as well, right? So do you want to talk about that a little bit? What kind of skills are transferable?
Sure. And again, being an engineer, and most of the roles I hire are all engineering roles. I've had some, engineering technician roles, which when I go and hire, I tell HR, that's the ideal candidate for some of these. Typically, this is an entry level, not degree position. Is a veteran, right? Not all, but a lot of the military is just working in this very technical environment, and that transfers so well to what we do. And I just wish I could. I don't know why we don't recruit more veterans, because it makes it so much easier. That is always sort of goes to the top of the list for some of these positions. And then also for recent grads, somebody who maybe just finished their degree and has previous military experience, that's also, these are people we see as, hey, that they've sort of have this huge amount of life experience in addition, and they're sort of ready to go. So, if this relates to you, come apply for my positions. We'll hire you.
Yeah, I want to throw out another angle question on this topic a little bit. Not necessarily veterans, but I think what's the role of computer scientists in the industry? There's a lot of people that work in tech or have computer science degrees or maybe computer science experience, and sometimes folks with those types of experience don't think that this industry is for them. Like, they're in the tech industry, right? This is the life science industry. But does anybody want to talk about the role of kind of tech degrees in life sciences? Anybody?
Sure, I will. Yeah, so half of my team, is software based, right? We make machines. Machines are connected. A lot of life sciences is we sort of consider it tech, right? So it might be on paper it might be in a different category, but yeah, we are teams of engineers, and the percent of those degrees or those engineers is becoming more. It's computer scientists and software engineers. So there's just as much of a need and just as much experience to be had in this sector.
Great, thank you. Let's shift a little bit. So once someone gets a job in this industry, say they are lucky enough to get a job at one of your companies, how then does your company support them once they come in? Maybe they don't know anyone that's worked in this industry. They don't have their own network in this industry. What kind of support is there for them? Paula, why don't we start with you on that?
Sure. So depending on the role someone's hired into, there's different levels of support. So for example, for our graduate students and postdocs, the support is that they have formal mentors, a thesis committee if they're graduate students. We also have professional career workshops. We have an SBP Science Network for career building and networking. And then for administrative roles, we've recently launched a leadership development program. So it really depends on what your role you're hired into. And then we also have support for everyone at our institute. So one of the initiatives I really love here is that we have a mental health peer support group. This is led by actually one of our graduate students, but it's open to anyone in the community. We also have a very active diversity, equity, and inclusion group, and that supports both trainees and then also staff and faculty and many different levels.
Great, thank you. Heather, how about at Thermo Fisher Scientific? You mentioned someone could come in with no sales background and get some sales training. What other types of support exists?
So as an external hire, everybody gets a new hire ambassador. That is somebody who is not in your direct food chain at all. They can't be in your food chain. And they will be your mentor for at least 12 months, where we want you to meet with them a couple times a month. And they're kind of your sounding board, somebody that you can talk to regardless of whatever your challenge is, and they kind of help you steer the ship. The other is that we get you engaged with employee resource groups, where you can actually, anything that you share commonality, so that you can find who you identify with, or different groups. You know, we have a group that we even have a group called the Pets of Thermo Fisher Scientific, where you can actually share. We're having a contest right now for Halloween outfits, but we have, you know, different ones, women and veterans and millennials and all different entities. And we ask that no less than 25% of the members do not identify as that group, so that you could learn more about different cultures and ethnicities. But I always encourage my team to participate in those sorts of organizations, because we do, you know, walks and charities and gardening and all those things. But I think the ambassador, beyond the training, the ambassador is somebody that their role is to introduce you to different groups, different divisions, so that you can expand your own network.
That's great, thank you. So I see we've only got a couple of minutes left here, and I've seen a few questions come in. I can't see the questions because I'm on my phone. Unfortunately, my computer was acting up. But Karen or Paulina, do one of you want to maybe read some of the questions for our panel to answer?
Sure. We have a question from a veteran. Why would veterans be considered entry-level hires if they have 4+ years of technical and professional experience? Maybe Steve, you can take a stab at that one.
Sure, I wouldn't consider them to be entry level. That they would bring their skills with them, and the biggest key is focusing on a position that would be at the proper level for that person. I know there's a lot of comments about entry level and such, but you know, we're looking at a first job into life sciences, and so maybe that is a lateral move into a role where you're going to have to learn.
Thank you. The next question is to Alexa, because one of our participants can connect to her story. I'm a 4th-year PhD candidate in cell and molecular biology. I'm an international student, and I'm really passionate about becoming a research scientist in the pharmaceutical industry. What are the challenges to expect as an international?
Well, I mean, I moved to this country 25 years ago, so a lot of those things have changed since then. But of course, you know how it is from changing your visa status. I mean, it took me 10 years to become a citizen of this country. So sometimes granted for international students or applicants, not all the jobs are available right away. I was refused a couple of times from some smaller biotech companies that just don't have ability to bring in international students and sponsor their visas. So those are some of the challenges when it comes to international students. However, especially in academic institutions, there is a pretty big support from those universities and organizations when it comes to international students, and they're very, very open to it. And I do see a next question is just to speed this up. How do you go about sponsorship, and do you recommend a postdoc first? So postdoc is typically performed after you receive the PhD, and nowadays you can do academic or industrial postdoc. Either is amazing. I did academic at UCI and I loved it. I wish that I was given an opportunity to do industrial, just because it fits my personality a little bit more. Sponsorship, I don't know if you mean for a PhD program or for typically PhD. For me, I had a, what do you call it? It's not a sponsorship, but it's a stipend or whatever. So it was paid for. I mean, it was below the minimum wage, but you know, that is the beginning of every career like that. So yeah, while there are challenges, on the other hand, really they're not. If you're good at what you do and you seek for more opportunities and approach to companies, don't ever feel like you're an imposter. I still feel like I'm an imposter in my own company, but if you approach the people and talk to them and you know, ask them about their needs, you may actually find that you are a perfect person for them because of either your personality or, you know, specific skill set that you have, or just being a nice person.
Thank you so much, Alexa. I think we have time for just one more question. And that question is, are there internships or summer jobs that students can get in order to get a foot in the door?
I can take that one. Well, I know at NERCN we have internships and postdoc opportunities. We actually have a special veterans summer internship program where we dedicate at least a certain number of headcount to veterans during their internships. Those are a great way to get your foot in the door. And even for international students, you've got the OPT option as well. So you get the practical training. And we've converted a lot of folks from those internships into full-time roles. I know a lot of companies do them. So preferably if you can find a paid internship, great, but I would take any internship you can get.
Great. Well, thank you so much, everyone. And Michelle, do you have any final comments, or shall we just go ahead and move right on into our breakout sessions?
We can move on to the breakout sessions, but the takeaway is what I started with, is just remember that there are people here who are willing to help you. So just reach out.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So now we are going to go into our breakout rooms for each group with a couple of industry representatives in each. And so our first breakout rooms, we are going to have the first breakout room one will be for talking about translating your military skills to the civilian workplace. And breakout two will be in speaking to how to break into the industry as a recent grad. So we'll take about just a couple minutes to get switched over into break rooms. So the first session is 15 minutes long. After that 15 minutes is up, our speakers will stay in their rooms, and you're welcome to move on to another room or stay in the room that you're in. So session two, the first breakout room, will be in networking and how to build a network. And then session two, the second breakout room, will be on telling your personal story.